So what we're doing here is a Sicha. This is something that the Rebbe said on Simchas Torah in 1965. On Simchas Torah, you're already reading the next parsha. You finished the Torah on Simchas Torah and you started again on Simchas Torah. So this Sicha focuses on Bereishis, the first parsha of the Torah. And it's about light. It starts off the verse when light was created. It says, V'amar Elokim yehi or vehi or. God said, let there be light, and there was light. Boom. Now, we have a question right away. God created heaven and earth. There was the darkness and the Spirit of God hovering above the waters, etc. And then it says the first thing, God says, let there be light, there was light. So we have the question, what's the point of creating light if there's no one to benefit from it? God didn't create the world yet. It's not even that God didn't create man yet. God didn't create anything from the world yet, as far as we're concerned. There weren't even plants to benefit from light or anything like that. So why did God create light first? That's the question we're going to focus on, is why did God create light first? Not just that, but we have this idea that the first light that God created was this massive, brilliant kind of light. And then after that light was there, God hid some of it away. He tucked some of it away. He's like, this light is too bright. This is not going to be the light that's going to continue throughout creation. We're going to dial it back a little bit. Which we have here is what the sages talk about in the Gemara. Dam Rabbi Elazar. Okay, having this conversation. And it says, okay, according to Rabbi Elazar said. What did Rabbi Elazar say? It says the light that God created on the first day, it wasn't the light of the sun, but it was a different kind of light. Because we have that on the fourth day, God created the sun. So he's saying it's not the same light. It was a different kind of light that was created. A light that was so bright that man theoretically could have looked from one end of the world to the other. That's how bright it was. You could have seen the entirety of everything. But when God looked and he sees we're soon going to have a generation of the flood, that they're going to be wiped out. The generation of, they call it the generation of the dispersion. That's when they try to do the tower, and then they were going to build the tower all the way up to the sky and they're going to fight God, da-da-da. And that's when God changed all the languages. Then everybody went to their own separate clans. They all went their own separate way. That's the generation of the dispersion, the Dorflaga. So God says, look, we're going to have this generation and that generation who are not exactly exemplary kind of people. They're going to be corrupt and they're going to misuse this light for evil. So he decided, okay, that's it. I'm going to conceal from the light. We're not going to let this huge bright light that would allow man to see from one end of the world to the other. We're going to conceal part of it. Who did he conceal it for? He concealed it for the righteous people in the future. He's like, all right, there's going to come a time, the tzaddikim of the future, they're going to get this light. Interesting. Okay, where are we going with this? Now, we have something else. We have this idea that light in Hebrew is or is light, and it says or has the same gematria as raz, which means secret. First of all, there's this whole explanation about if a thing has a gematria, their numerical value of these two words are the same. And you say, well, what's the big deal, whatever? Well, because everything in Judaism is so specific, and every word is so specific, and the origin of the life force, where it's coming from, the way it's connected to the letters, da-da-da. So that means light and secret, because they have the same gematria, that tells us that there's something conceptually out their source that makes them similar. Now, of course, that's a good question. What would that be? Because they seem to be very opposite. Light is the exposure of something, and secret is the withholding of something. What connection could these two possibly have? So now we have these two ideas. Now we're going back to this idea of building about why is light created first. Here again, an example that it gives, that it talks about the way God created the world is that he followed the pattern of nature. And what was that? The way of the world, the king of flesh and blood, who builds a castle, he doesn't do so from his own knowledge, but rather from the knowledge of an architect. And the architect does not build it from his own knowledge, but rather he has scrolls and books in order to know how to make rooms and doors, etc. So too, Hashem looked into the Torah and created the world. So it's trying to say that God was trying to create this pattern, that it's not just God created the world, but God had to look the same way a human king has blueprints that they build the world from. So God looked into the Torah and it created the world. Now bring this all together. What does it have to do with something? When we set on a task, when we have a big project that we're going to do, that we're going to build a house or whatever it's going to be, we state the goal from the outset and then we take action accordingly. We're going to build a palace, we're going to build a castle. Let's break down how it's going to come about. All the different things is like, this is the goal. This is what we're working toward. It's kind of funny because I say that about writing also. Writing is like a road trip, but I guess it's the same idea. Like you have to know where you're going. And then when you know where you're going, you can plan then how you're going to get there. So know where your story's going to go, know what you're trying to say with your story. And then you can figure out which scenes you need, which people you need, what actions you need to actually achieve that. So we see, even if we don't consciously necessarily do it all the time, we do objective. And then we say, okay, now we can have a plan of action. We see also this wording, this actually phrase here, Sof Ma'aseh Machshavat Tchila, that's actually from Likkutei on Friday night. Last indeed is first in thought. The end of something is actually what you first thought of in the beginning, because once you hit the end of it, then you're done, right? It's always in the last place where you look for it. No, but here it means that the last thing you do, you're like, boom, now the project is finished. What does it have to do with anything? God created light first because he was stating the purpose of creation. The purpose of creation is light. That is what the world is supposed to be about, bringing light into the world. Then once God made this mission statement, he said, okay, this is the task, this is the goal. Now we could go about implementing it. Now we could go about creating what needs to be done so that the world could become a world of light. Which is also why we've seen this kind of before, where olam is the word for world in Hebrew. That comes from the word of helem, that it's hidden, covered over. because this is what creation became, that we have the light was hidden away, but the fact that light was created first is because this is the purpose and goal of all creation, is to reveal that light which was hidden. Which is why, interesting, if you look at the original verse where it says, we usually translate it as God said, let there be light, and there was light. But if you look at it and you just translate it, that God says, it doesn't just mean let there be light and there was light. You can say let it be light. As in God is proclaiming onto the world, let this be a world of light. Let it be lit up. Let it be lit. Is not just let there be light and there was light. Let it be light. Let this be a world of light. Now, we know that when God created the world, with each thing that he did, for example, God said, let there be light, there was light, etc. And then usually at the wrap-up of the day, after each thing was created, it says, Hashem saw the light, that it was good. God says that again for each part of creation, but the first time he's saying it is here with the light. This phrase gets repeated for each thing that gets created. So God created the earth and the trees and the whatever, and then he said he saw it all, and he said this is good. Meaning, he's repeating the phrase not just because he's calling each thing good. He's not just giving each thing a check mark, but he's revisiting what is their original good. What did God originally call good is light. So God sees this that it is good, aka this is light. Yes, this is light. Yes, this is light. Subsequently saying that for each stage within creation. It gives us two parts now to the creation of the world. One, the world was created and there was light, and that is the stated goal of all creation. Let there be light, there was light. Let it be light, the world should be a world of light. But now we have this phrase, God sees the light and it was good. God calls the light good. So this phrase that God sees and calls it good, we see it again throughout creation, because it's not just this, we have the stated goal of creation, but we also have this light that's being drawn down within creation. God's giving each aspect of creation a channel of light now. He's giving it like a ray of light, each part of creation. He says, this is good. Yes, this is light. So it's not just like checkmark, I created, checkmark, this is a good thing I created, but checkmark, this is a thing of light. This will be a thing of light. This will be a thing of light. Come back to the thing that we said, that the focus on an objective or the focus on a task. So again, you state the goal from the outset. But then as you go about what you're doing, each phase of what you're doing is supposed to reflect the goal. Because we have a task and everything we're supposed to be doing is leading up to the task. Anybody who's ever run a project before knows that this is true. This is what we're doing. Everything we're doing has to be part of this. So it goes back to storytelling. Sometimes people will write these like massive manuscripts and you have to chop it down. I'm like, no, I don't want to cut this. I like this scene. I want to cut this. I like this scene. It's like, this scene though doesn't serve your story. So you have to take it out. Kind of the same idea. Like this character, what is he doing here? We see the two parts of it. One, we have the main goal, and then each step that we take after that is supposed to be a reflection of what the main goal is. On the other hand, while we carry out each phase of achieving the goal, the full goal remains hidden to others until the end, aka until the ultimate perfection of creation. On the one hand, you have the stated goal that like, okay, we're going to make a world of light. Then we have this ray of light that was drawn into each aspect of creation. But we also have a light that's hidden. And we're not going to see the full light until when the light was hidden away for the righteous in the time to come. So we're not going to see the culmination of everything where it's like, now I see how everything came together. Oh, now I see all the steps now fulfill the goal. Now we only see once you be completion, once you hit the ultimate purpose of all of it. There's actually a side thing. They have a deeper thing about the different aspects of what the light was, like the original light versus the subsequent light, as in the bright light that was originally, and then the lights, like the rays that each thing got. So on the one hand, you have the original light. God's calling it good because he's saying the essence of light is good. Light at its core is good. Light is a good thing. And then each aspect of creation gets a ray of light because it now has to be empowered to bring about light. We have the main light, and then most of that was hidden away, but each aspect of creation still got a ray of light because they had to now have the potential to bring about the light. How are they going to reveal this ultimate light? They were tapped with like a little bit ray of light, and now they can bring it about. You got the power now. The original light, remember when we had, all the way back in chapter 3, we had all the attributes of the soul? Wisdom, understanding, knowledge, kindness, severity, the 10 spheres, 10 levels. So there's a level above all that that's called keter, which means a crown. So that's considered above everything because that goes above head. So that's the original light, was a light above everything else. That was a light even before the actual creation started, as in, it was just like the initial pinpoint of creation. Kind of like the light that was above the starting point. Okay, we're going to create, but there wasn't any creation that had come about yet. So big flash of light. So they call that light, it relates to Kesser. This is a transcendent light. That's a light that goes beyond, they call it the chain of descent of creation. There's like a progression that occurs. Anyways, the point of it though is that it's a superior light, supra light. Then they have the second light that comes in, once creation actually comes about, these rays of light that come about, that's a light that's called the light of chesed. Chesed, which is kindness. This light, these rays of light that everything get, it's the active force within creation, the week cycle is beginning, etc. So it's saying that kindness is a dominating force within creation. And we know that because you had the great light and then you had the rays of light that went to each one. So you had the super light that went above, the supra light, and then from there, so it's like the sun and the sun rays, basically. So each one got like the ray of it, that light's called kindness. Close brackets on the deep dive. Back to the regular thing. We said that when the first light was created, God hid part of it away. The light's too bright. We can't have this bright light, especially when we're going to have the generations, what's going to happen to them. So we're going to hit part away. So where did he put it? What did he do with it? Oh, he put it away for the future, but like what? So the language that's used, it says that God stored the light away. So what's the whole thing with storage? If you store something away, it's still there, it's just hidden. Right? It doesn't say that God got rid of the light. It doesn't say that God replaced the light. God took this very bright light that allowed man to see from one end of the world to the other, and he stored it away. So what's the storage unit? You want to guess? Where do you think the storage unit is going to be? Where did he store this light? He stored it in the Torah. And also God looked in the Torah, created the world to see everything's coming in full circle. Which means that the revelation of the light that comes in the future, that light that God said, oh, I'm storing this light away, how much of it's going to be revealed, like the full revelation of it, is dependent today on the Torah mitzvahs that we do today. So the more Torah mitzvahs we do, the more we're racking up light points. The more we're putting in the brownie points to have greater revelation in the future. Oh, I didn't write this. I didn't put this phrase. Gadol Talmud Torah shemevi lidei ma'aseh. That's on the Gemara. Greatest, the study of Torah that leads to action. That it's not enough to just study Torah. We want Torah study, but we also have to study Torah to lead to action. Why? Because ye are, let it be light. Not just let there be light, let it be light. How do we bring that about? Well, this we learned when we did the whole thing with Shema, Kol Ma'ach Rechad. We each have our quote-unquote corner of the world that we need to illuminate. We each have our part of the world that it's up to us to bring light to it. To refine that part, that corner of the world that's ours. It's not just passiveness of like, oh, look, I'm not going to do any bad. I mean, that's good too. I'm just going to refrain from actively making negative decisions. Driving out the evil, it's not just enough to just say, look, I said no, so finally the evil went away. If that's not enough, we also have to bring in light. The revelation of light, it doesn't come automatically without an active bringing about of light, which is why we've actually seen this phrase a lot of times before. It's from Tehillim. Sor merat, turn from evil, va'aseh tov, and do good. So turning away from evil it's not just a line that's said two different ways. It's two different stages. Turning away from evil is one thing. That's passively refraining from evil. That's one way to get rid of darkness. Not paying attention to you, not listening, not looking. There's also active and do good. You have to bring light into the darkness. Right? Of course, we're talking spiritual because we're actively have to go about bringing light, and we're going to transform the world this way by bringing spiritual light into it. And now we take all of this and we have the whole macrocosm, microcosm, the way the Creator worked and the way that it applies for each of us men. And this is kind of the punchline. This is the wrap-up now of the Sicha, a practical application. When we had the actual creation of the world, there was light first. Why? There was no one to benefit from it. Well, because God was stating the intent of creation. He said the goal from the outset. Men, every day we are like a new creation. Remember we learned about how God is to continually keep the world in existence because it's not the natural state of the world to exist. It's actually the natural state of the world to not exist because we created a world from nothing. God forbid, if God would step away from it, there would just be nothingness again. There would be no world. It's not a clock that just ticks without anybody there. So every single day and every minute, it's even every minute because God is constantly bringing us into being. That means every day and every minute we are like a new creation. Which? Creation. See? Creation, we're making a parallel there. Every single day, every day, every minute, we should state the goal. What is the purpose of our being here? What is the point? What is the point of all this? And not just to say it, but to internalize it, as it to like make it something that's really a part of us. Every day and or every minute, what am I doing here? What is the point? What is the purpose? My job is to bring light. This is my job, to bring light. This is the goal. This is what we're striving for. This is what we're doing here. I keep having these arguments with the high schools, which is fine. I said, you can ask as much as you want as long as you don't deny. I was like, what do you guys think you're doing here? You think you're here just to get a job or whatever? What do you think you're doing here? Every day we're supposed to remind ourselves, what am I doing here? Which, by the way, parenthetically, we have so many parentheses and sidebars. It's just all crazy. Remember this was a point that was driven over and over and over and again in Tanya. It even connects to the story metaphor. This is the goal. So let us not focus on things that are not part of the goal. Or let us not worry over things that are not part of the goal. Or don't stress over things that are not part of the goal. We know what the goal is. The goal is to bring light into the world. So there's a lot that has to go on to help us bring light into the world. The tools that we have, all the stuff that are at our disposal that we can elevate and use to bring light into the world. There's so many other silly things we can get caught up on. And we do, because we live in a physical world. So we do worry about whether or not that new iPhone's going to be out on time or whatever it is. Or why did they run out of my favorite flavor of ice cream or whatever it was. I never have a good Gatorade in the store. What do we have these days? God almighty. Seriously, people, can you please cooperate for a minute? But you see, we can get ourselves all worked up. It can ruin the mood. It can be whatever. Like, your whole day is going to be ruined because your team didn't win? Because you get so invested in it, fine. But like, really? What does this have to do with the light? What does this have to do with the state and intent of creation? You're going to let this sink your mood? You're going to let this hold you down today? whatever. This is going to sink your mood. This has nothing to do with the ultimate intent of creation. So every day we are a new creation. Every minute we're a new creation. So we could reassert ourselves at any time, and at every time we reassert ourselves. We are here to bring light to the world, spiritual light to the world. Let us remember that's what the goal is. And not just think about it arbitrarily, really make it part of our lifestyle. Judaism in general, it's not just a religion, it is a lifestyle. I mean, we all know that. We're going to be Rosh Hashanah. We're going to be for Pesach. It's not just a religion that you punch in the clock every Friday, Sunday, whatever day it's going to be. Some people try to treat it like that. But we know that if you're really committed, or if you take on more stuff, it's everywhere. You have a mezuzah on your door, snuggle box in your home. Anyways, so that's the stated, what are we doing here? What is the point? Am I getting distracted by things that don't have to do with the real point of creation? That's number one. The second thing we have, so that was the preliminary light that was brought. And now we have the second light. Remember that on each subsequent day, God gave like a ray of light to each thing to empower them to bring about light. Because you have the goal, and then you have each phase of achieving that goal, each action that speaks back to what the ultimate goal is. So God said, let there be light. And then he created grass and trees, etc. And he says, this is going to help us, empower us to bring about light. Then there were animals or whatever. This is going to bring about light, etc. So that for us as well. Every moment and every action we do should attest to the goal that we have stated from the outset. We are here to bring about light. All the stuff that we get involved in, all the times that we're doing these things, that is an action that we've taken that attests to the ultimate goal is, to the purpose of creation. That's not just something that we arbitrarily think about, but you can read it in their action, right? We do certain moments of kindness. Wow, that's such a great thing. Yes, I'm kind because the Torah taught me to be kind, or something like that. We can attest it. Well, sometimes you don't have to say it. People know you're Jewish and you have certain behaviors, good behaviors. Someone is always ready to help, or someone is just patient, or pick whatever one works for you. Whatever it is, this is the way a Jew presents themselves. So it's not just the impression we're giving on the world, but that's the point. All of our actions, when it comes to the words we choose, to the things that we eat, to all of it, attest to what the ultimate purpose of creation is, to bring light to the world. Now, we have something very important. Continue our wrap up. There's actually a discussion. Is darkness a thing unto itself? Was darkness created for purpose, or is darkness just like a tool that we use so that we could have free choice and stuff like that? Remember also the whole thing with free choice. You don't have free choice if you show me two of the same things. You want light or light? So there has to be two things that seem to be similar. Usually the physical and spiritual. Spiritual is, this is good for you, but it's kind of like a long-term investment, versus physical, you think it's good for you now. You think that they're both going to give you enjoyment. One's passing and the other's actually enduring. But we have to have that choice. That's what it's all about. So darkness is not just a tool for free choice, but it also has a purpose unto itself. Take it to the next level. We don't just have darkness, something blocks the light, so they're like, oh look, we're going to reveal the light within the darkness. It's not just that, but darkness itself must be transformed into light. Stage 2. That goes back to Sur Merav Yasitov, turn away from evil and do good. We want to resist the darkness, but you also have to transform the darkness into light. So how do we go about doing this? Because it says a person, it can be very daunting to say, like, oh, turn the light into dark. Well, okay, well, that's nice. I'm just going to huddle under my blanket and just hope everything passes me by. Why does that not count? Also, we have to recast the darkness who could generate light. Oh, yeah, you can recast the darkness. It can be very intimidating. How are we supposed to do that? You want to turn darkness? It's hard enough just to resist the darkness. Resisting spiritual darkness is hard enough. You want me to transform it into light also? How do we do that? How can we go about doing this? I don't even know that it's possible. It goes back again to the first verse of the Torah, which is Bereishis bar Elokim. In the beginning, God created the heavens and earth. In the beginning of God's creation of heaven and earth. So Bereishis, the word Bereishis is the beginning. It's in the beginning. Rashi, foremost commentator on the Torah, part of Rashi's explanation is, where do we get the word Bereishis from? Bishvil atar shenikas reishis tarko, bishvil Yisrael shenikar reishis tuaso. Bereishis, Bereishis, you break the word down, it's Beis Reishis. There are two beginnings. There are two things that are the start of things. Rashi says, he takes the word Bereishis and says it's Beis Reishis. Two things are the start of things. What are they? The Torah, which is called the beginning. Reishis Darko, if you see the word in Hebrew, it's on that second line there. Reishis Darko, beginning of his way. V'shil Yisrael, the Jewish people, are also called Reishis, the same word. Reishis Tuvuasa, the first of his grain. So obviously we're drawing a parallel between Reishis and the word Bereishis. So instead of saying that it means in the beginning, Beis is 2 because it's the second letter. So Gematria is 2. Rashi says, God asserting what is the world created, what it's all about. God creates the world for the two Reishises, right? The two firsts, the two starting points. What are the two starting points? Torah and the Jewish people. They're both called Bereishis. Again, affirming, reasserting that the creation of the world from the outset was for the Torah and for the Jewish people. As in, the Jewish people are supposed to use Torah to transform the world. This is how we get the strength. This is how we get the aid that we need to succeed in doing this. And then eventually, it ends off with a blessing that it will come about the time. This is from the Navi Isaiah. Yeshaya. You shall no longer have the sun for light by day, for Hashem will be to you for an everlasting light. As in, through the Jewish people, fulfilling, studying, revealing the light that's stored away in the Torah, using the Torah to reveal the light within the world, the light of creation, will come by the time when the world will just be flooded with such a great light, the light of God, which is, of course, the ultimate redemption, messianic times, speedily in our days. Amen.